Hello everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to this group, Sacred Interiors, Home So Live. Let me make sure that this camera thing is working good, because if my thing here is crooked, it's gonna drive me crazy. Anyways, welcome. I'm super grateful that you guys are here. I know so many of you have been waiting to watch this video, either now live or later during the replay, but I know you have been asking me so much. Okay, great, I've been working on my inner space, I've been working on my new meditation practices, I've been really grasping all these different concepts of creating a sacred space from within, and you guys are doing the work. You're diving deep into your breath, into your practices, your meditations, whatever it is that you're doing. But then there's the, okay, how do I actually show that? How do I make it tangible in my space? How do I make it tangible for the people that come into my house? How do I see it, touch it, smell it, taste it, all that good stuff? And so the time has come where I'm going to share that. And I'm going to do it from this space of really wanting you to have fun with it and to really enjoy shifting things in your homes, shifting the way that your rooms are currently designed or not designed or whatever. So I hope that you guys enjoy what we're going to cover today. If you're new to the group, welcome. I'm here every Tuesday at different times, but every Tuesday doing a live training of some sort. So if you have any particular interests about a sacred interior, a sacred home in general, please reach out, send me your messages. I love answering your questions. Those of you who've been sending me pictures to get feedback on your spaces, totally cool with that. I love that you're sharing that with me, because here's the thing. A lot of times people hold back from sharing the pictures, for example, of their spaces, or asking questions out of fear of being judged, that the space doesn't look good, or the space isn't professionally done, or doesn't look expensive or whatever. But the truth is, number one, if it did, then you wouldn't need help. And number two, we're not shooting for expensive. We're not shooting for professionally done. We're not choosing for perfectionism. We're choosing for authenticity. And that is something that only you know what that means for you. Only you know what that looks like for you. And maybe you don't, but you're discovering it. And that's where the process of using your spaces and your environments is super, super fun, and also works really well. So we're going to start with just a few kind of universal concepts and principles on how you properly start designing a room. So first of all, what kind of room are you going to start working with, right? That's the first thing you need to define. Like, which room in your home is a priority? A lot of the times I work with homes all at once, but for most people that's really overwhelming. So starting with one room is a great project to take on. And now is also a great time to start thinking of it maybe in terms of the holidays are coming. This is a good time to start designing what maybe entertaining your family during the holidays is going to be about. Most people start thinking of that at the cusp of the holidays, when they're already stressed out, rushing through stuff, where more messages to buy more and more are coming right on our faces all the time. And so we become more impulsive to buy more things, to decorate with more holiday things. And at the end, we just have wasted a ton of time, energy, and money, and the space doesn't even look good. So I want to encourage you to start thinking about it now, to start thinking about it with a plan, and not just an impulsive action of coming to the store and buying things you like. Let's create a plan that gives you a bigger vision. That's why it's called design, and that's why we work through the process of it before we even get to shopping, and before we even get to the fun part of selecting what it is that we want. We need to know what your room is being used for. What are the functions that you want for that room? How do you want to feel in that room. That's also really important. So take the one room you want and start thinking about that. How do I want people to feel when they walk in? How do I want to feel when I walk in? What do I imagine myself doing in this room? That's really important to know. Once you have that in place and you know what that function is going to be and that purpose of the room is, then the first step I like to work with is what I call quieting the space, which means we're gonna get into this task of getting every single thing out of the room. What I see a lot of people do is they try to redecorate by like keeping the room as it is, and they just start moving things around. And for someone who's really, really sure of what they want, that might work. But in most cases, the way that you can really create bigger transformation is by emptying yourself and emptying your space of that which is clouding your judgment and is clouding your perspective, and you're just seeing the same things over and over. So the process of really quieting the room is something that I really, really recommend when you're getting started on redesigning your living room, your bedroom, any space in your home. Okay, so it's gonna be a little uncomfortable to see all your things somewhere else. So you're gonna have to think of a space to designate, for all your things to be placed in and to store them for a few days, maybe even a week, who knows, depends on your time frame. But think of that ahead so that you're prepared. So when you're doing it, you're not suddenly more overwhelmed than needed and more frustrated than needed. And let your family also know that you're going to be doing this. It's a really beautiful way to start cleansing the energy of the room, to start really visualizing the possibilities that you weren't seeing before. When the room is full of things, you really don't ever even really see another possibility of how to arrange the furniture that's already there. But when it's all clear and out of the way, you now have a box, a blank canvas to start. So that's my favorite way to work with rooms. Getting everything out, wall art, your curtains, your knickknacks, of course the largest pieces that you for sure know you're keeping, like your bed or your nightstands and that kind of a thing. If you know you're keeping it, then let it be, let it stay. But if at all possible, bring everything out for as much as you can, okay? So that's the first step. Moving forward, the second step is going to be now paying attention to the ideas that you have for that room. So this is where the Pinterest boards do come in handy. This is where the magazines and the catalogs that you've seen and the pictures you've been saving and collecting come in handy. So start, compiling them, and then start going through them and really see them with a deeper perspective of paying attention to more of the details. What about this room do I really like? What about this picture do I really like? Is it the blue? Is it the colors? Is it the style of it that I really like these very modern chairs? Is it that everything is really open? Or is it that everything is very cozy? Start really bringing awareness to the specifics of what you like about those pictures, because what I find is that a lot of people get just really enamored by the big picture of it, of how it all comes together, which is great. Seeing it all as a whole is great. But in order to get to it as a whole, we need to start with things, individual things, right? So it's important to know what are the things you're attracted to from those pictures you're seeing. Don't just say, I love this. Tell yourself what specifically about that image you really love, right? Paying attention to each detail. And then in that process, something really interesting happens. And what happens is that oftentimes, I see this with my clients, is that you get out of classifying yourself as having a particular style. So you might have heard from me before that I'm not very fond of boxing myself or boxing my clients into one particular style, because most of the times people just want the feeling of the room, not just not just the looks. And what I mean by that is most of the time they actually like the looks and want the looks, but what people really remember and how it really makes it a sacred interior and how it makes it an uplifting environment is by how the space feels. So I don't really care if you want to mix your modern Barcelona chair with a very rustic table and a hand crocheted blanket, right? Like, it's something we wouldn't maybe normally pair together, but it has meaning to you. You're following the principles that we're going to get into next in terms of scale and proportion and all of that. But also it feels unique, it feels authentic, and not like you just copied it from a catalog and bought everything from a catalog. Okay, I really want you to understand that concept because it's really, really key in making sure that you feel proud of your house. I often tell my clients when I work with them, I'm not designing your home based on my style or on what I like, because it ain't my home. This is not about me. It's not about your room, your house telling my story. It's about your house, your room telling your story and the stories of the people that live in there too. So you do have to consider, the people you live with. So if your husband has, again, that same example, I get this all the time. Maybe he has a more modern style and he really likes modern things, but you like cozier things, fluffier things. We have to find a way to merge that. There isn't a right and wrong way to do it. It's important to validate the taste, the personality, and then also the functionality of each room is different for each family member. While I might sit here and work on my computer, maybe your children sit here to color, or maybe they sit there to read, and so maybe the chair they sit on needs to be a little bit more comfortable for reading than it is for being on the computer. So really thinking of how your family's unique functionality and unique personality is and what that looks like, and how you can really accommodate everyone into that reflection of the space. So really keeping in mind what those details are, not being boxed in with styles, which if you are clear that you both are modern, then by all means go for it. But if you're not, don't beat yourself up thinking you have to have a style. That's something I really always like to share and reiterate. And so now, here's another important aspect of the process. When you quiet your room and you get everything out of the room, this is not the time to start going through your things in terms of what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. It is not the time. The goal with quieting the room is to leave the space blank and available for your creative energy to come up, for your ideas to be able to be manifested, but we're not yet decluttering. That's a whole different process. And I say that because most of the time people get overwhelmed by the decluttering process. And if they start doing the decluttering process right now, that's usually where they get stuck. It's usually where they procrastinate about it. It's usually where they feel the most overwhelmed, because decluttering is not an easy task. It's oftentimes very taxing emotionally and physically as well. And so don't start decluttering just yet. This isn't the time for you to get rid of things. Now, of course, if there's something that you know for sure you don't want, like it's a broken piece of furniture or something, by all means dispose of it and get rid of it. But I mean the little things, the drawers, the closet, the boxes, this isn't the time to start going through item by item and sorting through it just yet. We're going to get everything out first. And then we're going to start moving into arranging the biggest pieces, the furniture pieces, in a way that makes sense for the function that you've already established for your room. Okay, so if it's going to be your living room, you're going to start thinking about which large pieces you're going to have there, what kinds of conversational arrangements you're going to make. Is this living room made for, again, reading, entertaining, really thinking of that. And with that function in mind, you're going to start arranging your furniture in a way that makes sense. Getting out of your head in terms of what should be, how you do it, how it looks good, how it should be done. There is no should here. This is something you're going to really go into by function. That's how you're going to use your logic. What is a function? And then the heart comes in as far as, how do I want this to feel? Do I want it to feel like a cozy conversational area? Then maybe you're going to have the chairs closer together if you really want it to be cozy. If you don't really care about it being such a conversational area, you just want enough seating for everybody, but everybody's kind of going to do their own thing, then maybe the chairs are further apart. Okay, so really start thinking about how you want the room to be, to feel like, and what you want to do there. And that's how you arrange your main pieces: your chairs, your tables, your beds, desks, bookcases, all the big pieces, the large furniture pieces that you need. And also keeping in mind that a few things people do a lot when they do this is they start putting the biggest pieces towards the walls always. So that would be a tip I can share for you right in this area of arranging your furniture, is don't put everything against the walls. It's okay for you to leave a wall empty and available. It's okay to bring chairs and furniture into the middle of the room if the traffic can still kind of go by, if you can still walk around it. Really don't get boxed in again by these old paradigms of how things should be in the room. Make it your story. Make it purposeful for your family. I don't know if I've said that enough. Okay, so that's the second part, arranging your furniture. And then also, when you're doing that, keep in mind that once you've quieted your room, which obviously I'm going through this training fast, so you can get all the wisdom and all the structure on how you're going to design the room itself, so you can get it on the training here. But this obviously takes time, days, sometimes maybe even months. Hopefully this is something you're committed to doing and you could possibly get through it in a weekend. And start with one room. My experience is that when people do one room, following the process, they almost always can also do the rest of the home. And it's really, really powerful when it's done in this order because it's so much less overwhelming. So when you quiet your room before you start arranging your big items, pay attention to how your room is in terms of what kinds of architectural elements are there in the room. You know, is there some nice crown molding that maybe you didn't pay attention to before? Is there a nice fireplace that is there? Is there I don't know, some wallpaper or mosaic that maybe was there and you were covering it with a bookcase and piles of stuff? Pay attention to things that might be you might have missed before, the frames of windows. And if there's none of that, which sometimes happens, then how can you create some big sort of architectural like statement areas? So maybe you do bring in a fireplace, or maybe the wall where your TV is going to be your focal point. The main reason to find these things and start paying attention is we want to create a focal point for the room. That means most of the arrangement of the furniture is going to be done keeping that focal point, that wall space or whatever the focal point is, as the main point of reference. So if I have a fireplace that I really want to showcase and I really want to, amplify its beauty, then I'm going to create the chair arrangement facing the fireplace and not away from the fireplace, okay? Does that make sense, you guys? Feel free to let me know, because I'll get carried away, getting really, I just twisted my camera. Getting really specific on all these things. So let me know if you need any help in the process or if there's anything you don't understand. But so we want to showcase one area of the room, which is where the eyes are basically going to go first when you walk into the room, whether it's, again, a fireplace, a TV, maybe it's a piece of art that you really value, maybe it's a beautiful built-in bookcases, something that is grand, beautiful, large, substantial, bold, that you're going to focus on, okay? So that is how we're going to create the arrangement and bringing in all those large pieces. And then from there, there's 2 steps to beautifying the room and completing it. So this is where a lot of people get caught up. And in fact, this is where a lot of people start, which is the biggest mistake I see in interior design. It is also the proof of the biggest myth in interior design, which is that your design and your interiors need to be expensive for them to look good. My light just went off here, but that's okay. We're gonna work with that. So it's important to know that it does not need to be expensive, okay? All we're working here with is almost things you already probably have, okay? I mean, of course, if you need to buy any of the things that you've been knowing you have to buy, like a new bed or a new sofa or whatever, feel free to do that. But for the most part, this is something you can tackle with things you already own within your home. So it doesn't need to be expensive at all. But it ends up being expensive because most people start in this part of the design, which is the last part. And that's where we bring in your, not your furniture, where we bring in your decorations, your wall art, all these other pieces, your drapes, your rugs, your lighting. That's the last part of design. Does that make sense to you guys? And so it's important that you know when you start with that stuff, you're wasting a lot more money, a lot more time, and the result might not be what you want it to look like or feel like because you didn't do the other parts that I just mentioned. So FYI, that's an important little big tip. And then also, it's really important to know, I'm looking at my notes here since my light turned off, is that no matter how luxurious your pieces are, no matter how luxurious or expensive your furniture is or your artwork is, the individual components of the room do not guarantee that your space will be beautiful. Because while we want to pay attention to details, we also need to see the whole space as a unity, right? How does it all interact with each other? And what that means is that thinking in terms of scale and proportion is very important. And this is something that sometimes takes a little bit of skill, but for the most part, it's something that with practice you can get. And so what I want you to start paying attention to is proportion in terms of, you know, if I'm gonna have my TV be the focal point of the room, what kind of a console or TV stand am I going to have for the TV? If I want the TV to be the main point of the room, what size does the TV need to be? Does it need to be small? Does it need to be big? Bigger doesn't always mean better, but it does need to match and go in, you know, in connection with what you're using it with. So making sure that it fills the wall nicely so that it doesn't look like it's a skimpy little TV in the middle of a large 13, 20-foot ceiling wall, okay? And then the same for the TV stand. If you have a 60-inch screen, but you have, you know, a 24-inch nightstand to just hold the base of the TV, and then the screen is coming out of the table, well, it doesn't look proportionate. It looks like the TV is gonna fall off. It doesn't look right. The same thing goes for your coffee table. If you have a large black leather sectional sofa, you know, a skimpy little Formica table or glass table that is very little, very thin, it's not gonna go well with that sofa. You probably need something more substantial that matches the scale and the weight and the mass, the visual mass that the sofa takes in the room. So that's super important to consider. And then the other principles that are really important to have, like that intentional design and that intentional composition, is really thinking about balance between the negative space and the positive space in your room. Meaning, you know, is there enough space for my eyes to kind of rest after I've seen this focal point? In other words, do they need to look at every wall because every wall is so full of so much stuff? Or can they really focus on this one wall, appreciate it, and then kind of easily flow out of looking at it? So that's important when you create a focal point, and that's where the balance comes in, and that's where you start thinking of, well, maybe I can have some negative space in this wall and just have it be plain and empty, and it's fine because the wall across from it has this beautiful large wall art with a light on the top that's bringing so much attention to it. So I really want my eyes to be resting the rest of the time. So that's really, really important. And then from there, this is where we start creating unity within one room and also the next. When you're designing your room, you want elements that you use in the room, all your things, to go together to a certain degree, but you don't want it to all match. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, where they think that because they have a blue lamp, everything in the room needs to be blue. Blue comforter, blue pillows, blue bed skirt, blue wallpaper, blue rug, blue, and it doesn't have to be that way. How do I want you to think of unity in terms of using all your items? I want you to think of it in terms of repeating certain things like texture, repeating certain things like color, repeating certain things like materials, right? So maybe you have black wood for the nightstands, and maybe one mirror also has black wood in the frame, right? But it doesn't mean that the tables are gonna be black, the bed's gonna be black, the mirror's gonna be black, the bookcases is gonna be black. Repeat some of that element, let's say color or texture or material, but don't overdo it, okay? And then pick 2 or 3 different things that you want to repeat. So is it the color you want to repeat? Okay, so maybe I like the white. So I'm gonna have the white skirt and then the white chair, and then the drapes are gonna be white. But I also really like the, let's say, wooden material and the wooden color of, let's say, cherry wood. I'm just making stuff up. So I'm gonna have the cherry wood tables, and then I might also have the cherry wood lamp. That's 2 things, and now I have a way to unite this one particular piece. And then maybe I also have a beige rug, and so I want to add another beige pillow so that I have these other 2 components to go together. As a rule of thumb, I usually like to have no more than 4 colors that determine the kind of theme of the room, and 4 is really my maximum. I usually like to go by 2 colors or 3. So maybe the predominant colors are gonna be 2, and then there's gonna be 1 accent color, or maybe there's 2 predominant colors and 2 accent colors. Maybe I have everything in a neutral gray and a neutral white, and then my accent colors are going to be silver and gold. Maybe that's the 2 colors I want. So then I will find details in the individual components, the lamps, the drapes, the rods, the rug, the boxes I use to keep my jewelry in. The little things are purchased with that knowingness of what colors I'm using and what textures and what materials as well, okay? So I hope that that's helpful. Now, once you have quieted your room, you've defined your focal space, and you've arranged your big, large pieces and your furniture. Then before we get into decorating with all the little things, pay attention to what I shared as far as the color and the repetition. None of that is about the little items just yet. How we're going to define those things first is with 3 main points, and is using your lighting, using a rug if you have the need for it, the space for it, which I'm gonna backtrack on that. There's always space for rugs and there's always a need for rugs, so take that off. Knowing that the room needs a rug, we're going to look into the rug, we're gonna look into the lighting, and we're gonna look into the window treatments, okay? Now, I'm being very vague to give you a general idea of how the room gets put together, but later on we could I'm happy to go deeper into each topic because each of it, you know, has deeper layers to it. So you're going to define those colors that I mentioned, or the materials that I mentioned, or the textures that I mentioned, right? And so that's where you're going to make your definition and your decision about which rug you're gonna buy and which drapes or window treatments you're going to have. That means it's important to keep those two things as either in the neutral pattern, material, and color, or the bold accent colors or textures or materials. So for rugs, what's really important is that it's nice and large, nice and big. The biggest mistake people make with rugs is that the rugs are so small. They look out of place, you guys. They really need to fill the space. They need to fill the floor. They need to anchor pieces of the room that would otherwise float around. So when I see your sofa and your coffee table and the rug is barely under the coffee table, but there's all this other space in between it, and your sofa is like large and giant and you have chairs around, the rug makes your space look undone and it makes it look cheap. Rugs that are big are the best investment you can possibly make. Okay, that is hands down the best tip to succeed in making your room look the most cohesive. And then window treatments are also a huge component of having a professionally designed room versus it looking not very good. And that is that usually drapes are either used for the wrong purpose, meaning we use these panels, like the fabric panels you can get at Home Goods or Target or Marshalls or anything like that. Those are really meant to be for decorative purposes only. They're not really meant to cover the light. They're not meant to block the window for privacy. They're really meant to just be there for decorative purposes. So that being said, use them as such. If you need more function, like light, you know, covering the light or privacy or whatever, then really do think about investing in blinds or shutters or anything that is not just that drape, or blackout drapes, which are also a possibility. But for the most part, the other kind of panels for windows are decorative only. When you use them, it means you're meant to have them be at the sides of your windows. They're really meant to kind of enhance the frame of your window and enhance the size of your wall. So make sure that they're hung as high as possible. Don't just hang them right by the window, right? So if this is the window and then the frame of the window, and then the rug is right here, but then I have all this other space of wall, what it does is it makes my room look really short. It makes my walls look really small. So really think about hanging your window treatments as high to the ceiling as possible, and also as wide from the window as possible. So really expanding, creating more of an expansion, open space, a grander, more vertical space, more width, really just letting it be something that enhances the room more than just kind of provide the quickie for, you know, light protection and privacy and all of that. So that's an important aspect. And then lighting is important because it creates the mood and it really creates the welcoming atmosphere of a home, or it changes the atmosphere into something else, right? And so lighting is something that is used, not enough. Underused is the word? Yes. So it's important to use at least, I always say at least 2 layers of lighting, maybe even 3. What does that mean? That means you want to think of it in terms of, is there a ceiling fixture you can have? But then also, is there a table lamp or a floor lamp that you can add? So don't think of it in terms of one ceiling fixture and that's enough. It never is. You always want to have at least 2 or 3 different sources of light in your room, knowing that natural light is also light. So if you have really good lighting from your windows, that's one. So maybe thinking about a floor lamp is a great idea. And then maybe thinking about some under cabinet lighting is the third aspect of the third layer of lighting. So that's something that will immediately create a bigger mood, a more cozy mood, sometimes a more romantic mood. It just eases your feeling into the room a lot. Also keep in mind that most people nowadays are using LED light bulbs, and I almost feel like I could have a whole training on just LED light bulbs as well. But lighting is important in terms of if you're using LED light, well, on one side, this is the mom in me, the holistic mom in me, do your research, because there's a lot of research out there that is not very positive about LED lights, and it's a big controversy, but you know, you do your own research and trust your intuition and see if that's something you're interested in. For the most part, I would say that it's important that the temperature of the light matches. What does that mean? Temperature is not related to like heat to the touch. Is related in lighting to the color of the light. So in LEDs, you will find there's 3K color temperature, there's 4K color temperature, and there's 5K color temperature. There's some other numbers in between, but in general, it's usually 3, 4, and 5. For residential use, you always want to go with 3 or 4 at the most. What is the difference? 3K is what resonates with me the most, is what I use for all my interiors. Occasionally I'll use 4K, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but normally 3K is the way because it's the closest to natural light that there is. It's the closest to that kind of warm, normal feeling of a light bulb, right? Like think of incandescent light bulbs, how they wear with the kind of soft white light. That's what 3K means. It's not yellow light, but it's not white light. It's just like that soft color. And so you want to make sure that all your 3 layers of light matches, because a lot of times you might have under cabinet light that is too white, and then the ceiling is yellow, and then the floor lamp is kind of in between. It doesn't look right. Make sure they all match. They are all the same. So 3K is what I suggest. 4K, if you want either more light, like if you really need more light in your life, maybe your eyes need it, you have someone who's older in your home or whatever, or if you're creating a very modern space. For modern spaces, I also use 4K, or for tasks that need more light. So if you have a desk lamp, or if it's the kitchen and you really want to like get on there. Now, if you are not going to use all 3 layers of light at the same time, for example, I use my under cabinet lighting in my kitchen in 3K because I really like it to just create a mood. I only turn that light on at night after I'm done cleaning the kitchen, after I'm done cooking. I really just keep it on to create this kind of relaxing ambiance while I have my tea or my golden milk, or maybe I have some friends that are coming over for some chanting or some conversation or whatever. But I don't turn those 2 lights on, like the ceiling lights, which are 4K for tasks and just to cook and clean and scrub and whatever, with the 3K, because I just don't like the way it looks. But that's a personal choice, but it's my recommendation. Now 5K is a whole nother game. 5K is really more for commercial uses. So I pretty much never use 5K lights unless it's for like the garage, maybe even the laundry room needs that much light. But in any other case, in kitchens or bedrooms or even bathrooms, it's usually too much. It's usually too much light, too bright, too unnatural. And I really don't even think it's right for your brain to like have that much unnatural light all the time. So that is lighting. Drapery we covered, rugs. So let's recap where we're at. We're going to create the vision, the function, how do we want the room to feel, right? Then we're going to quiet the room, empty it of all. We're going to bring in the inspiration. What are the pictures you like? What are the things that you love from Pinterest, from the Lugs magazine you got in the mail, from Pottery Barn, from Ballard's Design, Anthropology, Restoration Hardware, all those catalogs. Get them out. Look at the pictures you love and what about them do you love the most? And then we're going to start arranging the furniture in the room with a focal point, keeping in mind what functions you have for the room and keeping in mind that we are going to enhance the focal point by pointing the furniture towards it, giving attention to it with the arrangement of the furniture. And then we're going to start beautifying by bringing in the rugs that are nice and large, not skimpy little rugs. We're going to bring in 2 to 3 layers of light, and we're going to bring in the drapes and the window treatments, making sure that they are functional and that they are aesthetically hung correctly, high up to the ceiling, wide in the context of the window, okay? So that's where we're at. My throat is starting to do some funny things. Okay. And then we're gonna go into the last part of it, which is where most people love, but also where most people fail. Most people start in the last part, which is the knickknacks, the little vignettes, the cute little hummingbird, the cute little crystal, the cute little vase, right? All the things we love that we spend way too much money on. If you had the time to go through all your receipts from Marshalls and Home Goods, I know what this is like, you guys. And you add all the little cute quotes you bought that say home sweet home, and you have 100 of them. How much money you spent, if you add all that, you would be crazy surprised. And that really ties into what I shared last week in the invest in yourself versus spending. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. Because most of the time, we're so scared to spend on a large mirror that might be $500, and then instead we buy $100 worth of quotes today, and then $200 worth of pillows next week, and then $100 worth of something else the next week, and none of it looks good. Whereas all we needed to do was invest all of it in one piece that would make the centerpiece of the room, and it would tie it all together. So I really want you to think of knickknacks in a much more conscious way, where you only bring into the room those things that you absolutely love, and you really cannot love it all. It's just not possible. So love is abundant, love is infinite, love is full of possibilities, but when it comes to home decor, you cannot love all of it. It's just not needed. You want to be picky and selective about the things you want to really bring in and that you really truly love. And so what we do with that is, again, using the same principles of unity and repetition and scale and proportion. So if you have, again, a large sectional that it's all leather and it's like for 8 people, it's giant, you're not going to bring in a skimpy little pillow to put on it as a throw pillow. You need a nice 28 by 28 pillow, right? Something big, and maybe you need 3 of them and not just 1. Really think of scale in a bigger way, so that you're not placing things that are too small on surfaces that are too big. Make vases bigger, more substantial. Your bowls, your trays, even your candles. It's better to have one big candle than to have a bunch of little ones, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. And then you're gonna use the same concept of color unity in terms of accents for your knickknacks. In other words, if your 2 colors are gray and white for the main pieces of the room, then maybe your other 2 colors in gold and green are going to be your knickknacks. Your bowls, your boxes, your Buddhas, your candles, what else? All the little things that you would put in. And then in that, when you're decorating with those things, you want to make sure you absolutely love each single thing. It should bring you the utmost joy. Like Marie Kondo says, does it spark joy? That's so true. Does it? If you love when you look at it. Of course, in the Sacred Interiors concept, we go deeper in terms of really creating a different kind of thought current by looking at these things that we're decorating with that remind us of this deeper inner work that we do in my program. But for those of you who aren't in the program yet, first of all, we're enrolling, so if you're interested, please join us, because my God, do we get to do some amazing inner work in not just inside of you, but inside your home as well. Really bringing like that sense of harmony from this inner space and the outer space. It's mind-blowing and I love it, and I really, really, really encourage you to book your breakthrough session with me if you're interested in going deeper into making this home of yours a sacred space. But at any rate, we go deeper into that in terms of, you want to feel like you walk into your room and you feel immediately connected to yourself. You feel immediately connected to the life that you are living. You want to walk into your room and know that the reason you're working so hard is because these big purposes of the things you want for yourself are what motivate you and drive you. And decorating with things in a meaningful way creates those reminders for us. So I want to leave you guys with that bigger picture. But now you have this blueprint, now you have this recipe on how you can design your room into that sacred space, into a space that looks beautifully put together and that looks cohesive, that looks like you have hired an interior designer to help you. So if you have any questions, let me know. Send me pictures if you're doing it. Keep each other accountable for the work. If you want to post your progress on the group, feel free. If you want to post before and after pictures, feel free. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. And I love doing it. And I love that you guys share it with me. So enjoy it and have fun. And I will see you guys next week. Sat Nam. Thank you.